Hello everyone, my name is Joshua. This is the 10th video of my video journal series. Today's date is the 18th of February 2026, and something I thought I'll share with you today is my reading of the Bible, more specifically the Catholic Youth Bible, NRSV Catholic Edition. Now, I've always identified as a self-practicing Christian myself. Growing up, I actually went to a Baptist and Catholic church, surprisingly enough. So I went to two different denominations church, and I've always had an appreciation for Christianity and other religions. I've always liked studying, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Judaism, and I thought I'll just read the first page of Genesis from this book, just the first page. Page 23. It's different for each edition, but I've rarely used this actual copy of the Bible. I usually have like a mini portable one that I use to read, but I thought I'll read it out loud. Genesis 1, and I'll obviously give my thoughts on that specific piece of scripture afterwards. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was good. And God separated the light from darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So God made the dome, and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome. And it was so. God called the dome sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called the seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with the seed in it. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, and for days and years. And let them be lights in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth." And it was so. God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. God set them in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And then there was evening, and then there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky." So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves, of every kind, with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things, and wild animals of the earth of every kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind, and the cattle of every kind, and everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. So that's the end of, I guess, the first page of Genesis of this book. My thoughts on it is, well, my thoughts on creation. God has created a beautiful earth that, you know, even though he talks about creating Adam and Eve a little bit later, I believe that we humans are tasked to protect our beautiful earth, the environment, the ecosystems which inhabit it, day and water, day and night cycles, land and water, everything that encompasses life on earth. And, from a Christian perspective, it is beautiful. Um, God's creation. And you may not be religious or anything, and I respect that. But I think something we can all respect is looking after plants, animals, and each other and yourself. Really, look after other humans. Look after one another. Look after yourself. Um, you know, to me, Genesis has always been one of the most fascinating chapters in the Bible. The first one, just hearing about creation and what God made. Day, night, land, water, birds, fish, just everything in between, even humanity. And I think whenever I take a walk out in the park, whenever I go traveling around the world, or whenever I get to appreciate the beautiful scenery, I always thank God for creating such a beautiful, beautiful ecosystem that unfortunately in some areas, is drastically affected by climate change, deforestation, coal mining, global warming, and all that sort of horrible stuff. And, you know, in my life, I've been, in and out of Christianity. Um, I'm not like a very, very, very strict Christian. I just like reading the Bible and interpreting its meaning. I always found studies of religion in high school, which is basically a subject here in Australia, where, at least in New South Wales, at least, where you get to just learn about other religions, including Christianity, because I went to a Christian high school, and or technically Catholic high school, because the Christian ones were worth their tuition fees were a lot more, so my parents just sent me to a Catholic one. Um, so yeah, I learned a lot about my own religion and other religions, and I really got to just appreciate the creation of life and all its aspects. And you know, I guess life itself is also a miracle. Something that we should appreciate every day. Something that we should strive to preserve and protect for all. Um, just through like my reading of the first page of Genesis from this edition of the Bible, God saw all these creations and he saw them as good. And I think it's my interpretation that we must take care of God's creation. And unfortunately, that isn't the case in most parts of the world. But, if this video journal entry can inspire any of you to pursue such environmental protectionism, or even, you know, giving a smile to a person on the street, I think that could just make a difference and really, you know, I guess make the world a better place and respect God's creation. Um, and I thought about just reading that chapter of that page today, sorry, because, I was out today, going to school and all that, and I like to walk through a lot of like parks, and on the sidewalks I see all the trees, and it kind of got me inspired just to read that first bit of creation and to give my thoughts about the creation story, or just a little portion of it. And who knows, maybe I'll read more uh, Bible passages whenever they pop into my mind, because I find the Christian Bible, a very, very fascinating book. I actually like studying the Bible, and I think over the years my perception of meanings change a bit. I used to just follow it word by word when I was a kid, but then I learned to take it more in a, I guess, contemporary sense, if you know what I mean. That's just how I view it. Other people may view it differently, which I respect, as long as you don't view it in a violent way or misinterpret any of its meanings towards violence, which I believe no major religion ever promotes violence or hatred of one another. They always promote good, just a good thing, to love one another, to love and respect one another. But the way I interpret the Christian Bible, um, has changed over the years. Like, and I've gained more understanding of it. And yeah, like I just find some of the passages like really, really interesting. There's the book of Joshua in the Bible, which I've been trying to read because obviously my name's Joshua, but I find it interesting that he went around the wall of the city like I think it was 200 times, and then it just collapsed. And I think that passage in of it itself is basically just one that shows how dedication, loyalty, and just faith in God can really like pay off. At least for you know people who follow Christianity and all that stuff. But just have faith in even if you're not religious, just have faith in helping one another out and doing the right thing in life. And yeah, just really, you know, being the perfect, not perfect, but being a very good role model for other people, which, given our world today and all the terrible events that's happening in the news, I think we need a lot more care and love in the world. And yeah, something I noticed about the Bible just before I end, it's that the pages are very, very thin. Sometimes it's really hard to like get to a very specific page, and I don't feel like tearing it. But yeah, it's a very nice hardcover one. Usually I just use a portable one. I don't use this specific one, so that's why I had a little bit of trouble trying to find the first page because it's like pages were so thin, and yeah, they usually have like a mini section at front, so you gotta like, all right, you gotta skip the introduction, you gotta skip the copyright stuff, you gotta go straight to first page Genesis. And yeah, I mean, and yeah, just before I end, I just find the whole Bible like very interesting, and I like to study more about it. And I also find a little bit of sense of mystery to it because I know in the Bible, there's a very large gap between when Jesus was a kid and when he was an adult. I believe I think it's like 15 or 10-year gap in between. And that's one of the biggest sort of things that's really caught my mind about the Bible, where it's like it ends when Jesus is like, no, sorry, the gap is between when Jesus is a child, and then suddenly the next mention of Jesus in the Bible just fast forwards to him as like an adult when he's like started his preaching work. And I think it's like more than like a 10-year gap, and I've really been interested in like what happened in those 10 years. There's a lot of I guess like sort of like sort of I guess those elements of mystery within the Bible, or stuff that's like sort of a little bit unexplained or open up to interpretation, that I've really just been really fascinated with. The gap between Jesus's life, that one interested me, and I'm pretty sure there's like you know yeah, a bunch of other stuff as well. I've always found the very end of the Bible to be interesting, which I'll most probably read later on. I'm pretty sure it's just like a description of heaven. Like, I've got who the angel was speaking to. He was speaking to someone about heaven, and it's basically the final page of most editions of the Bible is, I'm pretty sure, like a scripture about what heaven looks like. And that's something I've always also been interested, like what heaven actually really looks like, you know. And I know this is going a little bit over time and a little bit off topic, but I really can't stress like how interested I am to read religious books and texts. And even if you're not religious, I think everyone should massively give it a glance and just maybe take some good morals out of it. Um, you know, and yeah, that's all I really have to say. But yet again, love one another as I have loved you. That's the golden commandment for love. Um, just love one another, take care of each other, and take care of yourself. Have a great one. I'll see you tomorrow.